Sir, he's having chest pain. I need to treat him now.
You still step back. I need to verify who you are.
I'm with Tempe EMS. The badge is right here. He's unstable.
Back it up until I say.
Let him help. He's an EMT.
Oh, look, my partner's at the rig. This is my patient. Move, please.
Not until I know you are who you say you are.
Oh, he's losing air right now.
He's turning white.
He was wearing an EMT uniform, standing next to an ambulance, trying to save a man's life. So why did a cop decide this was the moment to take control instead of stepping aside? The call came through loud and sharp, the kind that slices through your thoughts and leaves no room for delay. Chest pain. Adult male. Difficulty breathing. Apartment complex off Apache Boulevard in Tempe, Arizona. Javon Pierce heard the address and already felt his foot pressing harder on the gas. "Copy that," he said into the radio, voice steady even though his heart picked up. "We're 2 minutes out." Red and white lights washed over storefront windows as the ambulance cut through traffic. Javon sat in the passenger seat, medical bag between his boots, eyes fixed ahead. 6 years as an EMT teaches you patterns. Chest pain at night meant panic, fear, maybe something worse. It meant time mattered. It always did. "Think it's another false alarm?" his partner, Lena Morales, asked from behind the wheel. "Could be," Javon replied. "Or it could be real. We treat it like it's real." Lena nodded and pushed the siren a little louder. As they pulled into the complex, the scene looked messy right away. Cars parked crooked. A small group of residents clustered near a ground floor unit. Someone waved both arms in the air. "That's him," Lena said. "Right by the stairs." Javon grabbed the bag and jumped out before the ambulance fully stopped. The night air was warm and thick, carrying the sound of arguing voices and a barking dog somewhere nearby. A man in his late 50s leaned against a railing, one hand pressed to his chest, face pale and slick with sweat. "I'm right here, sir," Javon called out. "EMS, we got you." The man tried to answer but only managed a shallow breath. Javon knelt, already snapping on gloves. "What's your name?" Robert, the man said, words breaking apart. "Robert, I'm Javon. Stay with me. We're going to help you." A woman stood nearby, shaking, phone clutched tight. "He said it felt like an elephant," she blurted. "He couldn't breathe." "Okay," Javon said. "You did the right thing calling." He reached for his stethoscope. "Hey! Hey!" a voice cut in from behind him. Javon turned. A uniformed police officer strode across the courtyard, one hand resting near his belt. His name tag read, Colin Bratcher. "What's going on here?" the officer asked. "Medical emergency," Javon said without missing a beat. "Chest pain. We just got here." Officer Bratcher scanned the crowd, then looked back at Javon. His eyes lingered longer than needed. "You live here?" Bratcher asked. Javon blinked. "No, sir. EMT. We were dispatched." He pointed to the ambulance, lights still flashing behind them. Bratcher raised a hand. "Stand up for a second." "Sir, this man needs care right now," Javon said, keeping his voice calm. "I need to assess him." "I said stand up," Bratcher repeated. Lena stepped closer. "Officer, we're on an active call." Bratcher glanced at her, then back to Javon. "I'm handling a noise complaint. I need to know who you are." Javon slowly stood, hands visible. "My ID is on my uniform. My badge is clipped right here." The officer didn't look at it. Behind them, Robert let out a strained sound, halfway between a cough and a groan. "Please," the woman said. "He needs help." Javon turned back toward the patient, but Bratcher stepped into his path. "Hold up," the officer said. "Don't move." Javon felt the seconds stretching, each one heavier than the last. He could hear the ambulance radio crackle behind him, dispatch asking for status. "We're right here," Javon said. "Let me do my job." Bratcher shook his head slightly. "Something doesn't add up." "What doesn't add up?" Javon asked, disbelief creeping into his voice. "We're in uniform. We have the truck. He's clutching his chest." The officer exhaled through his nose. "Turn around!" Lena's voice rose. "This is not okay!" Phones started lifting in the crowd. A teenager whispered, "Why's he stopping him?" Robert sagged against the railing, his knees buckling. Javon looked at the patient, then back at the officer. "Sir?" he said, slower now. "Every minute matters." Officer Bratcher didn't answer. But as the sirens continued to flash and the man's breathing grew worse, the line between caution and control began to blur, and the delay was only just beginning. Officer Bratcher stood in front of Javon, his posture rigid and eyes narrowed as though he could somehow discern whether the EMT was telling the truth or not. The seconds stretched like rubber, growing longer with each beat of Javon's pulse. The ambulance's siren wailed in the distance, yet still, the officer didn't move. Javon glanced back at Robert. His lips were turning blue. Sweat dripped from his forehead, his breath shallow and labored. "Officer, you need to let us work," Javon said, trying to keep his voice steady, though the anxiety began to worm its way in. He'd dealt with difficult cops before, but not like this. Not when a life was hanging in the balance. Bratcher didn't budge. "I need to check your ID," he said, almost bored. "You could be anyone." "I'm not anyone. I'm a paramedic, and I'm trying to save this man's life," Javon snapped, then immediately regretted the sharpness in his tone. He breathed out through his nose, willing himself to stay calm. Lena took a step forward, her hands slightly raised in a placating gesture. "Officer, we're here to help. We don't have time for this." "Time's already wasted," Bratcher muttered, now looking around, seemingly more interested in the gathering crowd than the emergency unfolding before him. Javon could feel the tension rising in his chest, the growing sense of urgency clawing at him. "I have his vitals right here on my tablet. I'm telling you, we need to get him to the hospital. Now." Bratcher shook his head, the smugness in his expression turning colder. "You can show me your ID later, but right now, I need you to stay put." The officer took another step closer, and Javon could feel his body tense. The crowd was growing now, murmurs spreading like wildfire. Phones were out, and some of the residents had begun to film. They knew something wasn't right, and they weren't about to let it slide. Javon met Lena's eyes for a brief second. She didn't need to say anything. He knew she was thinking the same thing. How much longer can they afford to wait? Robert's gasps grew more desperate. He was holding his chest tighter now, his hand slipping as his strength faltered. The woman who had been standing nearby began to cry, clutching her phone, her voice shaky. "Please, someone help him. He's dying." The last words hung in the air like a bell, ringing louder than any siren. Javon felt the weight of it. This wasn't just another call. It was a life. Someone's father, someone's husband, someone's brother. And in this moment, all that stood between him and a chance to save him was this officer. "Officer, please," Lena said again, her voice breaking. "He's not breathing properly. This is an emergency." Bratcher's eyes flickered for just a moment, almost imperceptible, but Javon caught it. The slightest hesitation. But then, the officer crossed his arms, clearly unmoved. "You're gonna have to stay put," he said, his voice unwavering. "I'm calling it in. Let's see what the higher-ups have to say about this." Javon's jaw clenched, his hands tightening into fists. "You're wasting time," he repeated, stepping back toward Robert. "You'll be responsible if something happens to him." The officer reached for his radio, his hand slow, deliberate, as if every second were his to control. The crowd around them grew louder. "You're a cop, not a doctor," one man shouted from the back. "Let them do their job." Javon's mind raced, thoughts colliding like traffic in his head. He couldn't believe this was happening. Not now, not like this. But Bratcher was still focused on his radio, slowly communicating with dispatch, wasting precious moments. Javon turned to Robert, who was now gasping for air in the way someone does when they know they're about to suffocate. "Come on, Robert," he whispered, crouching down beside him. He placed a hand on his patient's shoulder, trying to comfort him. "I need you to stay with me, okay? Help is coming." But Robert could barely respond. His eyes were rolling back in his head, his breath quick and shallow. Lena stepped forward again, now visibly angry. "You're going to stand here and argue while this man could die? You can't be serious." The officer's radio crackled to life, the dispatcher's voice cutting through the tension. "Unit 39, 311. Is there a problem? Medical teams report no issues." Javon's heart skipped a beat. "Finally," he muttered under his breath, relief flooding his veins. But then, Bratcher's reply chilled him to the bone. "No problem. Everything's fine. Just need to check credentials. Hold on a second." Lena's face went white. "What?" she whispered, barely able to believe what she had just heard. Javon stood up, his hands trembling. The world seemed to tilt at that moment. The seconds stretched longer than ever before, and with each one, Robert's life slipped further away. But just as the officer turned back to his radio, there was a shift in the crowd, and it was clear. This was no longer just an altercation between a cop and an EMT. The onlookers were no longer passive, they were witnesses, and their eyes were focused on one thing: justice. But as the pressure from the crowd mounted, the officer's resolve seemed to harden, and Javon felt the walls closing in. The courtyard felt tighter now, like the air itself had shrunk. More residents drifted closer, drawn by the flashing lights and the sharp edge in everyone's voices. Someone's phone light flicked on, steady and bright, pointed straight at Javon and Officer Bratcher. "Sir, I can't breathe," Robert said, his voice thin, barely there. Javon dropped back down beside him without waiting for permission. He pressed 2 fingers to Robert's neck, searching for a pulse. It was there, but weak and uneven. "Way too fast." "Robert, look at me," Javon said. "You're not alone. I'm right here." Bratcher stepped forward. "I told you not to move." Javon didn't look up. "Then arrest me after he's stable." The officer's boots stopped inches from Javon's knee. "Stand up! Now!" Lena moved between them. "Back off," she said, her voice low but firm. "You're interfering with emergency care." Bratcher's eyes locked on her. "You don't tell me what to do." A woman in the crowd shouted, "You're letting him die!" Another voice followed. "This is crazy. He's got the uniform on." Javon pulled out the blood pressure cuff, wrapping it around Robert's arm with shaking hands. The numbers flashed and made his stomach drop. Way too low. "We need aspirin and oxygen," Javon said, glancing up at Lena. "And we need to move him." Lena nodded and turned toward the ambulance. Bratcher blocked her path. "Nobody's going anywhere." That did it. The crowd erupted. "Get out of the way! You're not helping! Let them do their job!" Phones were everywhere now. Different angles, different voices. Someone was narrating out loud, saying the time, saying the location, saying exactly what was happening. Javon felt heat rise behind his eyes, but he pushed it down. Panic never helped a patient. He focused on Robert's face, the way his eyes fluttered open and shut. "Stay with me," Javon said. "Tell me where it hurts." "Chest," Robert whispered. "Left side." Javon nodded. "I know. You're doing great." Bratcher's radio crackled again. "Unit 39, confirm situation," Bratcher answered without looking away from Javon. "I've got an individual claiming to be medical personnel, refusing commands." Javon snapped his head up. "Claiming? You've seen the ambulance. You've heard dispatch." Bratcher ignored him. Lena raised her voice. "Dispatch, this is EMS Unit 74. We are actively treating a cardiac patient. Officer is preventing transport." There was a pause, a long one. Then dispatch came back, sharper this time. "Copy that, officer. Clear the scene immediately." For a split second, Javon thought it was over. That common sense had finally shown up. Bratcher's jaw tightened. "Negative. I need to verify identities first." The woman near Robert screamed, "What is wrong with you?" Robert let out a sound that wasn't a word, his body going slack. Javon felt it instantly. The change. He shook Robert's shoulder. "Hey, stay with me." No response. "Lena," Javon said, his voice cracking despite himself. "I need oxygen now." Lena looked at Bratcher, then back at Javon. "I'm going." She took one step. Bratcher grabbed her arm. That's when the shouting turned ugly. "Don't touch her! Get your hands off!" Someone pushed forward. Someone else pulled them back. The scene teetered on the edge of chaos. Javon pressed his palm to Robert's chest. It wasn't rising like it should. "He's crashing," Javon said. Loud. Clear. "If he dies, this is on you." Bratcher hesitated. Just a beat. Just long enough for everyone to see it. Then he let go of Lena. "Fine," he said. "Do it." "But I'm watching." Lena ran for the ambulance. Javon tilted Robert's head back, trying to open his airway, counting under his breath. 1, 2, 3. Oxygen hissed as Lena returned, slapping the mask into Javon's hand. Javon secured it, watching Robert's chest, begging it to move. The sirens still flashed, painting everyone's faces red and white. Sweat ran down Javon's back. His hands trembled, but he kept working. Finally, Robert sucked in a breath. Then another. A weak cheer rippled through the crowd, but Javon didn't relax. Not yet. "We're not out of this," he said. "We have to go. Now." Bratcher stepped aside, saying nothing. They lifted Robert onto the stretcher, wheels rattling over concrete. As they rolled him toward the ambulance, Javon caught sight of the phones again. Every second, every word, every choice. And he knew, deep down, that this night wasn't ending when the doors closed. But while the ambulance pulled away and the crowd slowly scattered, the videos stayed behind, ready to travel farther than anyone in that courtyard could imagine. By morning, the clips were everywhere. Javon woke up in a quiet apartment in Mesa, Arizona, phone buzzing on the nightstand like it couldn't wait another second. He reached for it with heavy hands, still smelling faintly of antiseptic and sweat. The first notification came from Lena. "You need to see this." Then another, and another. Messages stacked on top of each other from coworkers, cousins, people he hadn't spoken to since high school. He opened the video. There he was, kneeling on concrete, gloves on, a man gasping for air, and a uniformed officer blocking him like a door slammed shut. The sound was raw. No music, no edits, just voices overlapping. A woman crying, someone yelling the time out loud. Javon's own voice, calm but tight, saying every minute matters. He watched it all the way through. Twice. When it ended, he set the phone down and stared at the ceiling. By noon, local stations in Scottsdale and Chandler were calling. By afternoon, it was national. The same clip, cut and reposted, sometimes slowed down, sometimes zoomed in on Bratcher's face, sometimes on Robert's shaking hands. A reporter caught up with Lena outside the station. "Did you feel like the officer was helping or hurting?" the reporter asked. Lena didn't hesitate. "He was in the way." Javon didn't want attention. He wanted sleep. He wanted the sound of a monitor beeping steady instead of that gasp replaying in his head. But the world didn't care what he wanted. By the second day, protesters stood outside the police department in Tempe, holding signs that read, "Let EMTs work," and "Time is life." Some of the signs had screenshots printed on them, frozen moments of the stop. Inside the department, Officer Bratcher was placed on leave. No press conference, no apology, just a line in a statement saying the incident was under review. That word followed Javon everywhere. Review. Robert survived. Barely. Doctors at the hospital in Gilbert said the delay made the damage worse. His heart would never be the same. When Javon visited him, Robert squeezed his hand with what little strength he had. "I heard you fighting for me," Robert said, voice thin but clear. "Even when they wouldn't listen." Javon swallowed. "I'm sorry it took so long." Robert shook his head. "You were there. That matters." Outside the room, Robert's daughter, Alyssa Crane, stood with her arms folded tight across her chest. "They keep asking me if we're going to sue," she said. "I didn't want to think about that. I just wanted my dad alive." Javon nodded. "I get it." But the city didn't move on. Online, people dug. They found other clips, other stops, other complaints tied to Bratcher's name. Nothing is public. Nothing with a camera so close. But enough to paint a picture. The department announced an internal investigation. City leaders promised transparency. The words sounded practiced. At a community meeting in Peoria, Javon sat in the back while residents spoke into a microphone. "I don't trust them," one man said. "Not after watching that." "My brother's an EMT," a woman added. That could have been him. When it was Javon's turn, he didn't plan a speech. He just stood. "I didn't ask to be known for this," he said. "I asked to help someone who needed it." The room went quiet. Afterward, a lawyer approached him. Evan Rockford. Tall, calm, eyes that missed nothing. "You have a case," Evan said. "Not just you. The patient, the delay, the footage." Javon exhaled slowly. "I don't want revenge." Evan nodded. "Then don't ask for it. Ask for accountability." That night, Javon sat alone, scrolling past strangers arguing about his life like it was a game. Some defended the officer. Some blamed protocol. Some blamed nothing at all. He shut the phone off. Because no matter how loud the internet got, the truth stayed simple. A man needed help. Help was slowed. And the world had seen it. But as the city waited for answers and pressure kept building, the fight was only shifting from the street to places with closed doors and raised hands. The hearing room inside the municipal building in Surprise, Arizona, smelled faintly of old carpet and burnt coffee. Javon sat at a long table with his hands folded, listening to his own breathing. Across from him, city attorneys shuffled papers like they were building a wall one page at a time. Evan Rockford leaned in slightly. "Answer what they ask," he said quietly. "Nothing more, nothing less." Javon nodded. At the front of the room, a panel of officials took their seats. No cameras this time, no shouting crowd. Just a clock on the wall, ticking loud enough to notice. Officer Bratcher entered from a side door. His uniform looked pressed, almost too neat. He didn't look at Javon. Not once. The chairwoman cleared her throat. "This review concerns an incident involving delayed medical care during an emergency response." Review again. The city's attorney began. "Officer Bratcher, why did you stop the EMT from providing care?" Bratcher shifted in his seat. "I had concerns about scene safety." "What concerns?" the attorney asked. "I didn't recognize him," Bratcher said. "There was a crowd. I needed to establish control." Evan stood. "May I?" The chairwoman nodded. Evan walked a few steps forward. "Officer, did you see the ambulance?" "Yes." "Did you hear dispatch confirm the medical call?" "Yes." "Did you see Mr. Pierce's uniform, badge, and equipment?" Bratcher hesitated. "I saw something, yes." Evan let the silence hang. "So your concern wasn't whether he was an EMT, it was whether you trusted him." Bratcher's jaw tightened. "I followed procedure." Evan clicked a remote. A screen lit up behind them. Still frames from the video appeared. Javon kneeling. Robert clutching his chest. Bratcher standing in the way. "Show me the procedure," Evan said calmly. "That requires stopping care while a man struggles to breathe." No answer. Javon felt his chest tighten, but he stayed still. He thought about Robert's face, the sound he made before going quiet. He focused on that instead of the officer sitting a few yards away. Over the next weeks, more came out. Internal emails, past complaints, statements from other EMTs who described being slowed down, questioned, second-guessed. Nothing as severe. Nothing caught this clearly, but enough to show a pattern. Robert's daughter, Alyssa Crane, testified next. She spoke softly, hands clasped so tight her knuckles went white. "My father can't walk to the mailbox anymore," she said. "Doctors told us minutes mattered. Those minutes were taken." One of the panel members looked down at the table. Outside, word spread. Community groups held meetings in Goodyear and Avondale. EMTs. Tsao spoke about the fear of being stopped again. Residents talked about trust, how fast it breaks, and how slow it comes back. The lawsuit followed, filed in county court, names on paper that turned a night into a record that would never fade. During mediation, the city offered apologies wrapped in careful language. Evan pushed back, hard. "This wasn't confusion," he said. "It was interference." The number came later, $1,900,000 for medical harm, for emotional damage, for lost trust. Javon didn't feel relief when he heard it, just a quiet weight settling in his chest. Officer Bratcher was terminated the same week, his badge collected. His file closed with a final note citing failure to follow protocol during emergency medical response. No press conference, just another statement. This time using the word accountability. Javon stood outside the courthouse afterward, reporters waiting. He chose his words slowly. "This was never about money," he said. "It was about time. About letting people do their jobs when lives are on the line." A reporter asked, "Do you forgive him?" Javon paused. "I hope he understands what he did." That night, Javon drove past the apartment complex again. No lights, no crowd, just concrete and quiet. He sat in his car for a minute, hands on the wheel, thinking about how close it all came to ending differently. He thought about how authority can slow help instead of clearing the way, how silence can feel safer than speaking up, and how neither of those things saves anyone. But even as the case closed and headlines faded, the impact of that night followed everyone involved, waiting for the moment when the lessons would finally be tested again. Life didn't snap back into place once the case ended. It shifted, quietly, in ways Javon didn't expect. A few weeks after the settlement, he returned to work full-time. Same uniform, same boots, same weight of the medical bag in his hand. But something felt different now. Every call came with extra eyes, some supportive, some cautious, some filled with questions no one asked out loud. On his first night back, Lena rode with him again. "You good?" she asked as they pulled onto the road near Queen Creek, Arizona. Javon nodded. "Yeah, I think so." They sat in silence for a moment, the engine idling. "You didn't have to come back so soon," Lena said. Javon looked out the window. "If I don't, then that night wins." The call came in not long after. Breathing trouble. Strip mall parking lot. Javon felt the old focus slide into place. Muscle memory. Training. Purpose. When they arrived, a patrol car was already there. A different officer this time. Ryan Koval. Younger. Nervous. Hands clasped in front of him. "You guys clear to work?" Koval said immediately, stepping back. "Tell me if you need anything." Javon paused for half a second, then nodded. "Appreciate it." They treated the patient without interference. No delays, no questions, just work. Later that night, Javon realized his hands weren't shaking. Not anymore. Across town, Robert Crane sat on his porch, wrapped in a blanket, watching traffic move past slower than it used to. His heart limited him now, changed his days. But he was alive, and he knew why. "I tell everyone," he said to his daughter Alyssa, "that EMT didn't stop trying." Alyssa nodded. "People listen when I tell them." The city announced new training policies, joint briefings, clear rules, words on paper that promised smoother cooperation. Some people believed in it. Some waited to see. Javon didn't pretend policy fixed everything. He'd been around long enough to know better. Change wasn't loud. It didn't arrive with sirens or headlines. It showed up in small moments, in who stepped aside, in who spoke up. At a high school career night in Buckeye, a kid raised his hand. "Were you scared?" the boy asked. Javon smiled a little. "Yeah, but being scared doesn't mean you stop." Afterward, a woman approached him, holding her phone. "I recorded that night," she said. "I didn't know if it would matter." Javon met her eyes. It did. He drove home later, windows down, desert air rolling in. He thought about how close things came to going wrong. About how power, when unchecked, doesn't need shouting to cause harm. Just hesitation. He also thought about responsibility, not just for officers, for medics, for witnesses, for anyone standing close enough to see something and choose what to do next. Because that night didn't belong only to him. It belonged to everyone who watched, recorded, spoke, or stayed silent. And the lesson wasn't complicated. When someone is on the ground asking for help, the question isn't who's in charge, it's who's willing to act. Javon parked, sat for a moment, then grabbed his bag and headed inside. Tomorrow would bring another call, another stranger, another moment where seconds mattered. He was ready. And if this story made you uncomfortable, that's not a bad thing, because change never comes from looking away, only from deciding what you'll do when it's your turn to step aside or step forward. If this story stayed with you, share it. Talk about it. Question authority when it slows help. Support the people who show up to save lives. And remember, accountability doesn't start in courtrooms. It starts with everyday choices.